is going to come along. So it's great to have her present at this meeting. So if you've got any questions for her, please spread the word. If anybody also might want to come and join this, who's in business in this area, so please let them know that that is happening. Okay, I'm going to kick straight off. So we've got 3 speakers today. I'm going to hand over straight to Gary, who's going to kick off, and I've got the timer set. Go, Gary.
Great, thank you, Claire. Morning, everyone. So obviously the subject today is recovery, growth and finance. First speaker actually is going to be Paula. So Paula is founder of On the Spot Accountants. No, it's fine. A team of experienced chartered accountants that make complex matters appear simple. They generally understand the whole sort of business and they work with you and your commercial business constraints, enable you to benefit from expert practical tax and business advice, as well as preparing and filing your year-end statutory accounts and optimum tax returns. So I'm going to hand over to Paula now, and she's going to do her section. Over to you, Paula.
Thank you, Gary. I shall just share my screen. And is that okay? Can everyone see the slides?
Yeah, perfect. Well,
excellent. So, yeah, if there are any silver bullets to running a successful business, these are probably them. So just have these in mind all the time. Plan, 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 act and review and adapt. Now, there are lots of people who are stuck on the plan stage and don't do anything or find it hard to make a decision. And there are other people who act without a plan. So, and this is not any kind of marketing guru, these are just my observations over the years as to how things work out. So please have a plan, so bear that in mind, make sure you make some sort of decision and act on it, and then be prepared to adjust your plan accordingly. So this is a circular thing that you just need to have in your head all the time. So running your own business, you have several hats. Finance, HR, operations, marketing, IT. Some of you may not have employees, so HR might not apply. But if you do, probably you're a bit worried about the furlough scheme ending and where that's how you're going to cope with that. So you do need to come to all of your business with a fresh pair of eyes if you haven't already. But bear in mind these headings, and perhaps actually have these headings written down, and we'll come to that. So make a plan incorporating all of those. Now, doesn't have to be complicated, doesn't have to be scary, doesn't have to be long. Just think about each of those things and how they fit in with your plan and your business. So I think this is probably the most important slide. You know, what is your business all about now? In the light of what you've learned in the last 6 months, is it 7 months now? You can see where the world's going. If you didn't know that on day one, I think most of us do know now. We were just saying, for example, we've all been forced to accept Zoom, even if we didn't like it to start with. It is an alternative to doing a lot of things. So online, so that could be for meetings. That can be, you might have to be doing videos on YouTube. You might be on Facebook. And there are loads of good marketing people out there, obviously can help sort of direct you here. But really think about how you can go online. What could you do? So, for example, I've got a client who's in the sort of plant industry. Now, you wouldn't believe you'd think he's a person who grows plants, people visit, people buy plants. Obviously, the postal version of that transaction has escalated during lockdown, and he's got a website. And then he started to show people what he did to his plants on YouTube, and those videos. And that he had actually already started. There was always a seed of that happening. But he got a lot of followers, a lot of interest, and just by demonstrating something, so filming something he was doing anyway. So it was his job. He was doing that every day. But his colleagues, his staff filmed him, uploaded it on YouTube. He's got a load of followings. He now has another income stream from YouTube because he has so many followers. So I just want you to bear in mind that that's a complete it's another string to his bow. It's another line of income. So just, it's not, he didn't start out doing that. That's how things have developed. So really think in your own business how you can make that work. So are you going to go for the direct sell or soft marketing? You know, kind of just put out your expertise out there or what it is you're selling. Can you become global now? So small businesses, you kind of got a bit of both here. You've got, it's very easy to become global because of online, because of that online angle. But it is also easy to develop your local angle, because you've got a lot of people who are working from home, who are forced to, they're not commuting to London anymore. They've been forced to look at the world around them, around their house, around their own town. And there's a lot of people who didn't really know what happened locally in their own town. And now they've really started to appreciate the businesses and what goes on locally. So you've actually got a small business can go for both of those. Small business you can really go for your local angle and get a lot of kudos from that. You can go potentially global if you can go online and do an online angle. There's a real appreciation of small, good service, agility, adaptability. Really sell that, really bring that home. Diversify. Can you do other income streams? You know, for example, the YouTube income idea. Maybe you could collaborate with another small business and put together a package of products that you could sell. You know, one thing on the horizon, more births in January, potentially. If you do anything that's sort of baby children related in the product area, or even indeed the service, you might want to collaborate with someone and put a package together. You know, really think about these things. They are pretty useful. And subscription service, maybe you could go down into a subscription service, but think about all of those things because they are becoming much more up there and acceptable and understandable by people. Bricks and mortar. Is there an advantage in having bricks and mortar? So maybe you have a retail shop and then you are developing your online angle because you know that you aren't getting the feet in the door so much, but perhaps the bricks and mortar does give you that edge for the local access. So you can really build on the local advantage because of the bricks and mortar and build the global angle more online in the back room, so to speak. And you need a building to store your products. You know, it might be that simple, or it might be that really the bricks and mortar isn't doing you any good anymore and you are just going to run your whole business from home. So I think I think the message out there is exactly what do you think your business is about? What should it be doing now? What can it do? Should it stop doing some things? Or should it add a lot of new things, or just one new thing that you can see actually that might work? So, but my point is, have a plan, think about it, think that this should work, do something, act, make a decision, and then review the outcome. Listen to your customers, listen to your suppliers, listen to your peers, go networking, listen to what other people are doing out there, and adapt slightly. One thing for certain, I've looked after lots of growing businesses and startups. The business they thought they were going to run on day one is not the business they end up with 2, 3, 4 years later, because the only way they will have survived those years is by adapting and listening to customers. And sometimes it's a little throwaway comment, and you just need to keep your ears open and go, oh, actually, that's a good thought. Perhaps I should go down that road a bit more. So really keep your ears open as to how to improve what you do. And I'm afraid it isn't a matter of I'm going to sell this product from this shop and people will come anymore. There's none of that. You've really got to keep at it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So write it down. Now, you might like a pen and paper. You might like the screen and doing a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are great because you can keep playing around with the numbers, obviously, but really write down those headings, write down the numbers, what should happen. Once you've thought about what the business could do, all the different things, write it all down. How many sales, what price each week, each day, what costs do you need to incur? Will you have employees? Will you have more employees or fewer employees? Or perhaps you just need to outsource to start with. What costs do you need to incur anyway, regardless of your sales? So if you have a property, you've got to incur rent, you know, that type of thing. Now, when you've looked at those numbers, you need to see where your cash flow falls down, where there are gaps, and you may be prepared to invest in your business to help it survive. That might be your own money. It might be that it's got some cash from the years before, and you're going to use that. But it might be that you need external finance. Now, that could be an investor who has a share in your company, but it could very easily be some sort of other finance. And that's where I hand over to Gary to pick that up for you.
Oh, that was seamless. Thank you, Paula. Very, very good. Thank you. Right, now I need to share my screen. So bear with me a second, if you don't mind. Not so seamless, this part of it. Right, so bear with. Gosh, I've got all these screens everywhere. Okay, so.
Do change your name to incorporate your business so that people can see what you do if you're on your screen.
So
Gary,
can you all see this now? Is that okay?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so right, a little bit about myself first. Gary Smith, I'm a director of Simply Business Finance. We are an independent commercial finance brokerage. So following on from Paula's slides where we're saying about the external funding, we've got access to over 250 plus different lenders. Now they range from the retail banks, so you've got the likes of Barclays, NatWest, HSBC, Santander, to name a few, as well as the challenger banks such as Metro, Shawbrook, UTB. We also deal with the peer-to-peer lenders and also some other institutionally and privately owned finance institutions. So we have a whole raft of products which I'll sort of loosely touch on in a second. Bit about the business. We're also FCA authorised and we're also members of the CFB. Now what that means is that we follow a strict code of conduct. We are audited on a very regular basis to make sure that everything we do is compliant and treating customers fairly, which of course we all do. We do not charge any upfront fees for our services at all. Our remuneration comes from the banks and the lenders because in effect we're actually doing their work for them. So what I will do is move on to the next slide, and what we're talking about is external funding here, and it's how do you make money work for you. So I think the best way to sum this up is if you're going to take on a member of staff, say they're going to be with you for the next 10 years, would you pay them 10 years worth of salary on day one? Chances are you probably wouldn't. So the whole idea about using external funding is to actually spread the cost of that acquisition or that investment to actually match it to the investment that you're actually putting in and the desired return on that investment. So commercial loans are pretty much, straightforward. That's just working capital. That might be to start or indeed finish a project if it's overrun. That's just straightforward cash into the business. We've got asset finance. Now that's going to be for all sorts of equipment that will be used within your business. So that could be IT, plant and machinery, vehicles, office furniture, catering equipment. No matter what business you're in, if you're actually going to be buying equipment within your business, you're better off spreading that cost over a term. The reason to use external funding could well be because you might have a cash pot within the business. Absolutely fantastic. I think what we've all learned over the last 6 months is, yeah, you've got cash in the business. What happens if? Now, no one knows what happens if. That's just impossible to answer. So all businesses got pretty much closed down 7, 8 months ago. A lot of businesses are still struggling. Those businesses that had cash reserves have actually burned through a lot of that cash. They've taken down the government loans, the bounce back loans and the CBILS lending. Absolutely fantastic. But that's really there to keep the business going. That's not there necessarily to grow the business. Now, some businesses have been fortunate enough that they had sufficient reserves and they've been able to use that investment, that money, to move their business to the next phase. Absolutely fantastic. but not all businesses fall into that category. So other things that the businesses need to think of is trade finance. So if you're moving into new products, or if you're moving to a new supplier, and you're selling goods on to your customers, trade finance allows you to actually buy the goods from your supplier, and it actually bridges that gap between your customer paying you. So the supplier gets paid out day one, so you can actually negotiate good payment terms, get good discounts. But then on the flip side of it, you don't have to worry about paying that back until sort of, it could be 30, 60, 90 days thereafter, by which time you should have actually got the money in from your customers. There's also invoice finance and factoring, which follows in a sort of similar vein. So this is where you're actually selling goods and services, mainly goods, to your customers. What you can actually do is receive up to 90% of your invoice value within 24 hours. Now, your customers might have put the pinch on you and said, yeah, we're going to buy that equipment from you, but we want 30, 60, 90-day payment terms. Well, you can actually provide that using invoice finance because you get your cash up front. You can also have bad debt protection. So that's where the lender actually takes on that risk and you don't. They can also do collection agencies for you, so you can have it disclosed or non-disclosed. There's a lot of benefits to actually using external sort of invoice factoring, if you like. Alongside of that, there are other, there's multiple sort of funding solutions for your business. It might be that you've got an unexpected tax bill. You might want to spread the cost of VAT. We all like to sit there and say, we allocate, excuse me, 20% of our invoice values, put it away into a separate account, and then we pay that over to the HMRC when it's actually due. Now, I know a lot of businesses that don't actually do that. So they're getting the money in, absolutely great. They've burnt through that cash because they've got ongoing projects, they're funding the future, and they've neglected to think about their VAT or indeed their corporation tax liability. That can also be funded. The reason we're talking about obviously funding such items as these is don't necessarily use an overdraft facility that's provided by your bank. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. And overdraft facilities are very expensive. Banks will look at it and say, okay, you've got an overdraft facility, you might have a commercial mortgage, you might have your own personal mortgage with the bank, and you could even have a business loan with that bank. Banks are taking a bit of a strong stance on lending currently. There's quite a bit of forbearance in there, but they are factoring all these items in. And with a sort of crown debt becoming a preference, there's going to be a bit of a squeeze on business overdraft facilities because banks do not want to be exposed. So always look at how you spread your risk in terms of borrowing money from different areas. Commercial mortgages and bridging. You might rent a property currently. Is it actually cheaper for you to consider buying that property? You know, there's multiple ways that you can actually set this up. You might want to buy it into a pension and then start charging rent to your business and paying it back to yourself. There's all sorts of mechanics that you can actually use funding and finance to actually work for you and your business. Using a SaaS, again, this is where you might release funding from your pension, which is the, actually it should be the other way around, but yeah, this is where you're actually sort of using the pension pot and releasing equity from that pension to provide additional funding into your business. Now that can be charged back and you can earn interest on it. So that's a really tax efficient way of actually putting money into the business. Sell and lease back. Again, if you have plant and machinery within your business, you can actually sell those back to a lender. They will then do what is called a sale and lease back agreement. So they're then giving you the money and you're then paying that back over the term. Now, all of these funding facilities are designed to actually run concurrently with the project that you actually have in mind. So you think about a simple cost accounting scenario. You might buy a machine that chucks out a load of widgets. Now that machine, when you factor in all the finance costs, thank you. When you factor in the finance costs and also the cost of the people that are actually working that machine, say it costs you £1.50, well, actually £10.50 per hour, that particular machine. you might look at it and say, okay, well, if that's generating £20 per hour in terms of the product it chucks out, then it's worth actually funding it, because you're making a profit every hour on that machine and it's covering its costs. You're not actually having to take money out of the business to actually support that actual borrowing. So these are all ways where you can actually look at external debt to actually make money work for you. And as I say, we're happy to have a conversation with any business and talk them through the different funding scenarios, completely free, no obligation, happy to have that conversation. So you've got the money. How do you actually manage the money that you've actually got? Well, we always recommend that you regularly review the current business finance arrangements. Have you got some short-term debt that you'd rather consolidate and spread over a longer term? Have you got some expensive debt that you can actually get cheaper elsewhere? Spread the risk. I've already mentioned that. Don't go to just your bank. Look at other lending and finance facilities that are available. And also, where else can your business save money? You know, look at your utilities, your gas, your electric, your water bills. They're all things that we can assist with. Card payment processing, those that use cash terminals to actually sell goods or services. There's a lot of savings to be had in the current climate. So feel free, come and talk to us, and we'll have an in-depth conversation, get to know more about your business and see where we can actually help. So that's me currently. What I'm going to do is now hand over to Kevin, who actually doesn't need much of an introduction because he's sort of been with us right the way through this. He's been on many Meet the Experts. He's always attended the sort of conferences that we have here. So hand over to you, Kevin, and for your section, please.
Thank you ever so much for that, and just trying to can you see that on the screen?
Yeah, got that.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you, Gary, and obviously thank you ever so much for the introduction, and thank you ever so much for once again allowing me to come and speak to the HHBA. You've been a great supporter of what we've been trying to do here. Just to give you an overview of where we are with business rates and the help we've given to businesses, we've given nearly £52 million to local businesses just in Mid Sussex area alone, whether in business grants. And for the records, just 67 businesses we didn't give grants to what we expected. Out of 2,100, there was just 67. We contacted each one of them, but they didn't want a grant. So, we did pay over 98% of those grants. We also paid every single penny of the discretionary grants to 292 businesses. And I'm pleased to say 2 of the elected members that were on the group that agreed that those guidelines are listening in today. And we got very much the steer that they wanted us to help as many local businesses as possible. Grants have now closed. We cannot pay any more business grants, although the council is moving forward with additional grants, and Councillor Hillier has been very much involved on that side of things. I'm sure he might want to give a few words on that later. Can I just state, though, the expanded retail discount that is given to local businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector is still available to claim for, and we are still awarding that to businesses at the moment. And basically, if they had visited members of the public previously before COVID, we can actually give them a payment holiday in 2021. We don't yet know what help will be available in 21-22, but as you all know, I'm an advisor to the HMLCIG, and of course I will let local businesses know as soon as I know anything from that. We do live on the edge of Gatwick Airport, and there are some businesses that have not been helped in this. There is 19 million though less to collect in view of the government help, but collection, because of those businesses that haven't had the help, is 3.4% down. That has issues for the council, because obviously we've got budget deficits to maintain as well, and obviously some big decisions to come up in respect of there. But the main thing I just want to stress is talk to us, and I'll say that as my theme throughout. Whether you're a business or whether you're an individual, come and talk to us, because we can offer payment holidays, and we do realise that this is an extraordinary year. One of the offsets of this, though, is, do you know there's no onus on businesses to tell us about their liability for business rates? we've actually found, because of the grants, an additional 320 properties. Now, I know you probably won't like me so much at this point, but there's 320 additional properties that we've made liable for business rates and an extra 6.6 million RV. Now, considering that it's about 50p in the pound multiplier, that's a 3.3 million additional amount to collect if we were actually collecting it. Obviously, at the moment, there's a lot of that being paid in government help. And the other thing is you can still appeal because of COVID in respect of your rateable value. There are a staggering number of people that have appealed against the RV, and it will take time to work through the system because the Valuation Office Agency are independent to us, are the people behind that. Mentioned about business and discretionary grants already closing. There is also a local restriction support grant. Now, let's hope Haywards Heath and Mid Sussex never needs this, but basically we are ready to go at 20 minutes notice to have grants ready and administer if we need to do it. We are ready, the systems are there. If we ever need it and we're put into the very high category, we're ready. We are expecting fresh guidance. I am an advisor to the government in respect of this. There are information changing all the time, and Manchester's we're talking about this morning, but we're ready to go if it's needed, but let's hope it's never needed. We will, of course, let the HHBA know and let local businesses know if it is ever needed, of course. Expanded retail discount, certainly there to the 31st of March. The MHCLG have no intention of withdrawing this at the moment, and you can get a payment holiday with that. The nursery discount is early years. You have to be on the Ofsted early years register. We have 27 businesses that qualify for that, 372,000, £100,000 at the moment. Mentioned about rateable value, I've mentioned about collectible rates, and I mentioned about additional rateable value. I also wanted to discuss this morning in respect of financial help for individuals, because as businesses, I'm sure you've got staff and I'm sure you've got friends that probably need the financial help as well. Obviously, the amount of people applying for universal credit has gone through the roof, and probably a lot of people that are no longer working after many years of working have suddenly started applying for benefits and everything else. We also have council tax support. We have a banded income scheme for that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that any change of income will affect the amount of council tax you pay. Let's just say if you qualify for universal credit, more often than not, you'll qualify for council tax support if you pay council tax. Since the start of this year, we are paying £500,000 extra than what we used to previously before COVID-19. So, and we've got about 500 extra customers in just Mid Sussex alone. So you can see that's had a substantial impact upon us. We've also paying now, we are live with the £500 test and trace payment. So if you're told by NHS test and trace to actually self-isolate, we can, if you meet certain criteria like qualification of benefits, pay you £500. There's a mandatory scheme and there's a discretionary scheme, and our member who signed that off over the weekend is listening in today. We also have the £200 exceptional hardship payment. Anyone in receipt of council tax support can qualify for the exceptional hardship payment this year. Any council tax that's left after you have council tax support awarded will see you get the up to additional £200 paid, and is ongoing throughout this year. We've still got money left. We've already paid over 80% of that, but we've still got money left. We've also got a debt advice scheme, and I'll come on to that later. But if you maintain the arrangement for debt advice, we are prepared to give you the additional £200 if you're not in receipt of council tax support, providing you maintain that agreement in 2021. As we know, the job retention scheme finishes on the 31st of October, and that currently gives you 80%. It did give you 100% earlier in the scheme, but it currently gives you 80%. But the new job support scheme, which is valid for 6 months, and we're not in a very high area, will only give a third from the 1st of November. We're already seeing aspects of people suddenly becoming made redundant as a result of that, and the impact through. Doesn't necessarily mean because of family circumstances that they'll qualify for benefits, but there is debt issues, and we'll come on to that shortly. There's a self-employed income support scheme as well, where grants are paid for people in receipt of people who are struggling because of COVID-19, and you can apply for grants for that, and there's certain criteria with there. I realise people on this call are mainly people of working age, but we have also seen impacts on older people as well. So if you do have elderly relatives, do also get them to contact us as well, because some of their jobs that they're doing are no longer there. So they're not always getting the help to which they're entitled to. Can I also state we can offer, we do collect council tax and we do collect business rates. And yes, I do call myself the modern day Robin Hood, because as I said, I take from the rich and give to the poor is what I said. But at the moment, a lot of us are struggling. A lot of us are facing circumstances that we've never done. We are part of a MAPS, a PACE pilot, giving free debt advice, and we can refer someone to this free debt advice. Happy to do that. Anyone just needs to contact us and we'll do that. We're happy to make arrangements. We fully realise that this is not a normal year, it's an extraordinary year, and we're happy to make arrangements into next financial year and longer from that. We just ask that people will seek the free independent advice. I don't know if you also, thank you so much. We're also aware that breathing space is coming in on the 4th of May 2021. And basically what this means is anyone seeks debt advice from a recognised authorised debt advisor, there'll automatically be, like there is with our current debt advice, a 60-day breathing space to the collection of any arrears. And that's quite important. And that can be for a sole trader, and that can be for any private individual for any debt. So obviously what we've got to do is to ensure that we pick up all the debts that are owed to the council. So there's some issues going forward with this about how we work for all debts within the authority, and that's something that we've got to look at. Can I also use this opportunity to mention that whilst we're happy to talk to people and we realise it's an extraordinary year this year, I've never seen anything like it in my 39-year career, we still have to protect the council's interests. So on the 2nd of December, we have actually, which is a Wednesday, we have actually got a magistrates court hearing for unpaid council tax and unpaid business rates. Now, summonses will be going out the week commencing on the 4th of November, and we expect to be very busy because we're putting 6 months court dates into one, and there's 3,500 summonses going out. Obviously, that's going to have an impact, but I stress again, talk to us, because we will look at payment records, we will look at circumstances, and my staff have been instructed to be understanding of people's situations. So if people will make arrangements with us, we'll look at that, and we'll even look at waiving costs as appropriate in terms of that as well, because we fully recognise that people are in a situation for which they've never faced before. So talk to us, please. I fully recognise the opportunities we've had from HHBA. I think it's great, and the support I've had off members. And can I just recognise the effort that's been played by my team? A lot of you won't know, but my team actually were created just 2 years ago, particularly the revenues team, because from the ashes of the partnership of the Revenues and Benefit Centres partnership. So most of my team doing revenues and actually administering COVID only came in 2 years ago. I brought in 11 staff on the 23rd of July 2018. What they've done has just been fantastic, and they've supported my eccentricity, and I'd just like to pay tribute to them. So thank you ever so much, and happy to take questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. That was fantastic. I can't believe how you ran to time. That was absolutely fantastic. I think you are the 3 people that businesses need to know, because you've got the accountant that can help you run, sort of help cut your costs and keep everything on track that way. You've got Gary can help you if you want to expand and need finance, and then you've got all the benefits from the council going and know what's going on there. And that's why I think these meetings are so good, because Kevin, you're saying so much stuff which is so valuable to so many people, and it's just getting the word out. So if anyone here knows anything that would be value to somebody else, please share this information, because I think there's so many people that I know that this is useful stuff. Who would like to kick off the questions?
Just
Kevin.
one point, Claire. Paula's quite right. The actual help on the job retention scheme is now 60%, not 80%. But just to confirm, it is going down to a third. So from the 1st of November. So excellent point, Paula. Thank you.
Not quite the cliff edge it appears and gets reported as.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good point though, but still additional help for people to find.
So yeah, opening up the floor to some questions. Does anybody have anything to ask to anybody, just to kick us off? Please don't be shy. Well, I have a ton of questions. Good. That means I get to ask them. Okay, so what would be your advice to a business to say right, COVID is now in the past. How should you plan to protect your business from something like this in the future?
Would you like me to answer?
Yeah, go Paula.
What I've noticed is that companies that gone into this with a kind of weak position, a weak balance sheet, I would call it. So not loads of cash, a bit tight on profits, historical profits. Things were a little bit difficult already. They have obviously suffered more. And also businesses that pretty much relied on one customer. You don't necessarily plan that, but it often creeps up on you, and you're sitting there and you go, and I've seen this happen lots of times. And a customer sort of starts working, a client works really well with a certain customer, it builds and builds and builds. Before they know it, 80-90% of their entire business is reliant on one customer. So I would say those two things, keep reserves as much as you can afford to, build up a good strong balance sheet to see you through the unexpected, and keep your number of clients, don't rely on one client, one customer. Diversify, spread out, have more clients, and those are the ones that have really suffered for sure during this pandemic. Everyone else I know that it's still relatively early days and we're going to see some more failures, I'm sure, but anyone else with a strong balance sheet and several customers and more strings to their bow type of approach have actually been able to adjust and deal with it and cope with it a lot more. So that would be.
Yeah. Thanks, Paula.
I agree with that. I think it's all down to the planning, definitely. But it's also very easy for businesses to overlook the obvious in a lot of cases, and I've seen a lot of that. Where we've been in a boom economy for such a long time, businesses become very complacent to their cost centres. They've looked at it and sort of said, yeah, that's fine, we'll carry on paying for that because everything's rosy. They neglect to sit there and say, can we get a better deal? Can we look at this? Can we restructure the funding? Can we do something slightly different? Because they're doing what they've always done, they're going to get what they've always got. And if that funding suddenly dries up overnight, which we all know it can do, they're not then making plans to, like I said earlier, spread their own risk. So I think it's more about, as Paula said, it's plan for the unexpected as much as you can, but actually make sure that you've got all your ducks lined up and you're not susceptible to that one customer or that one lending institution that could pull the rug at any minute.
Thanks, Gary.
I'd agree with my colleagues there. I just think we're dealing in a new normal, and I don't think COVID will finish for a little while yet. I think it's going to go on for some time, but the impact of this, I think, is at least 10 years. I think is massive, and don't forget something that has gone very much under the radar is called Brexit. The impact of Brexit and the impact of that on top of it as well. I think risk management plans are going to be absolutely massive, and I agree with my colleagues, plan, but plan for the unexpected, because I don't think we've ever seen a market, even in the doldrums, we've never seen a market like the one we currently face.
Right. Thanks for that cheering news, Kevin. Thank you.
Sorry.
Flexibility, adaptability.
Do you know what though? Generally, a lot of businesses that I'm in contact with actually are booming, and the problems they are having is they are snowed under at the moment, because especially in the property markets and things like that, and they are struggling. They really are, and they've had some support from grants to buy equipment, to buy vans, to provide some expansion. And I know some businesses that have really put that money to good use, actually, to really propel their businesses. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. It's certain sectors, and I think it's worth keeping in mind. The news is the negative stuff. There's lots of great positive news out there. I'd
agree with that, Claire. I think some businesses have done extremely well. They've really innovated. You can see that. And some of them just turned our grants down because they said, we just don't need it. We're doing so well.
Yeah.
In terms of it. What I would say is, though, I don't think, certainly for individuals and probably for businesses, at the moment, we're getting a lot of financial help. What happens when this financial help dries up? And I think that's the crux of the matter. That's when we'll see the biggest challenges. And that's when Paul and Gary, what they say is so important, because you've got to plan for that. And
Yeah.
is that sustainable is the question I've got.
Absolutely. And I think this is maybe something that we have to revisit in next year, because again, as April comes around next year and loans and repayments are looming, you know, I think it's going to provide a whole load of issues then again, and what the winter's going to be like. And
there's the VAT deferral, you know, should be paid by the end of March, if people deferred their VAT. If people deferred their income tax, that's due in January, unless you enter the next stage, which is a time to pay thing and delay for a further year and pay gradually over the next 12 months after that. But they are charging interest for that. So, so for sure, you need to really look at your cash flow and how you're going to pay this back.
Definitely.
So it's quite funny how there's a real divergence, I think, in some businesses. Does anyone else have a question before I keep asking mine?
Well, I've got one question. I mean, I think the fact that businesses are booming, I think, is a slight falsehood. I think there's been a lot of free money, a lot of help, a lot of propping. I think what business community needs to gear itself up is for next year. I think what Paula and Kevin and Gary has said is quite correct. I think there's been a lot of financial help that's come from various places, whether they've gone for business interruption loans, bounce back loans, or grants. Or have staff furloughed, and I think that money's been used to create an environment where actually it's not quite taking into account next year. So I think, perhaps that's a bigger thing that we ought to be looking at, is the impact of what happens next year with the VAT deferrals and the repayments of bounce back loans, repayments of business interruption loans, the fact that there won't be grants on the size and scale available for businesses that are automatically paid, or a furlough scheme on that. So I think that's the counterbalance that I think a lot of business owners need to consider going forward. And also, one final question, really for Paula, I suppose, is the diminishing of personal liquidity as a result of mass redundancies that will be hitting everyone in the next 6 to 9 months, and that does mean to spread the wider portfolio of clients more importantly than ever, I think.
Yeah, I think, well, thank you, Nas, nice to see you. I think it is true that we might see consumer demand being hit quite a lot if you've got a lot of people losing their jobs. I guess there might be an adjustment to where people do spend what money they have. So very much, value for money approach, perhaps, for certain things. Other things, they might spend less money on a holiday, but more things on local, more money on local services and products. This is where small businesses can really benefit. So I would say there's going to still be money in the system. People will still need things. They will still be working. Don't forget, is it about 40% of the economy is the public sector anyway? They still are on their full salary, and that, so there are still people around with money. And I think I heard, I haven't actually checked this out, but a lot of people paid down their credit card bills over the summer. Because they didn't have a holiday to spend it on. So you do have consumers sitting there, many of them with more money than they had expected to have, actually. So there's a bit of a buffer going on there as well. So I think you're right. Now, we have to bear in mind that could all happen, and that certain consumer demand will go down. But I don't think it is the full picture. And I think the world we are in now is, and will forever, foreseeable future, is a mixed picture and a changing picture. And again, small businesses need to see where the trends are happening, where things are moving and changing, and move with it, and adapt. And they are in such a good position to do that. If you look around at the larger businesses, they have struggled because they have a massive cost base. They're like the tanker that takes a long time to move around. Small businesses, you can make a decision today and implement it tomorrow.
And that's why I think some businesses have survived, because they haven't got that food chain of management. They've been able to pivot straight away, where some of the bigger businesses just couldn't make those decisions quickly.
No.
So it's interesting. There is money around. It's just working out how to get it into your pocket, I think, is the question.
And I think also, adding to what Paula just said there, it's the redistribution of the money, because where people are not necessarily travelling into the city to go and buy their sandwiches at lunchtime or get their haircuts when they end up at London Bridge Station, they're spending the money in Hayward Heath, and Burgess Hill, which is a great thing. Yeah,
it's opportunity. Ruth, you had a question.
Yeah, it was really just the lovely chap from Simply's just said it.
Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Hello, Ruth. Hiya.
Hi. This is certainly an opportunity for our local economy, because people aren't working from home. They're going to be spending more locally. You just made the point that small businesses can turn around very quickly. And I think the other thing is that a lot of major companies might be looking to set up local or regional offices around here, which hopefully will help the employment as well. So although it's doom and gloom, and please spread the word about the grants we've now got online for test and trace, but it could be a silver lining for us local economy, because it's all right if we take that opportunity and attract the inward investment into the area. It could be good for us. That was it.
Yeah, I want to remain positive. I genuinely do. And I don't know if it's just because I knock around with people that are like-minded that I find that my world is actually positive. Kevin, you've got your crown.
I agree with that. I think there's some businesses, and locally there's a lot more people working from home rather than commuting. You see the trains coming in. But whilst I remain positive, there are certain sectors that are struggling because offices are not so full. My own office has got 30% of staff in compared to 100% 6 months ago. The local sandwich shop, and I do know someone who works there, says they're losing £1,000 a week from because the office worker who used to go in and get their sandwich, get their coffee, just isn't going there. So I think, yes, I do agree. A lot of sectors are getting a lot of new local things, and that is absolutely great and fantastic, and I applaud that. But I still think that some businesses are struggling because of the new normal, because it's a new world.
That's kind of where, though, historically at the beginning of this, the blanket support was across pretty much every business, but now it needs to become very sector specific.
That's what I think. Yes.
So
sorry, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, Gab.
I was just going to say, I just wanted to echo what Ruth was saying, really, because I come after Paula and Gary have been in there and I don't think that I'm treading on anyone's toes, that I'm helping them to recover funds that are already existing within their businesses in the form of R&D tax credits. And we've done this week, a company, we managed to get 2.3 million back to them, which is letting them bring their manufacturing arm of their business from Hong Kong back to the UK, creating jobs over here. So, I mean, not everybody's got over 2 million hiding down the back of the sofa, but we can help anything from 1,000 up to figures like that. And it all goes back into the local economy, which is the really good thing about it. And that's what we need, is to keep that money close to our hearts. I totally agree. We're not paying £600 a month to travel up to London, and that money is still, hopefully, is within our power to choose where we want to spend it. So let's do that wisely and spend it locally.
I kind of want to keep the dialogue positive, and even in negative areas there can be a positive, and that's by support from councils. Neil, was that a little finger raised?
Yes, please. Question. Thank you to everybody, by the way. But question to Gary. The talk of working from home. I'm not alone. We've cut our costs by working from home, but working in a wholly unsatisfactory environment. Hence the false background. So the intention is to convert an office proper. I have a double garage, and I'm going to convert a proper room. Would there be any finance available for that conversion But what I don't want to do is link the house into the business, for capital gains at some point in the future.
That's a really tricky one, because obviously everyone's circumstances are different. However, there is finance available for kitting out offices that need equipment, etc. So the short answer is yes, there is facilities available. In terms of your own sort of personal tax position and business tax position, speak to Paula. We can certainly provide the funding. Yes, that's not an issue. But as I say, you do have to consider your own personal tax point.
Right. Okay.
Well, if I can give you a quick potted answer, Neil. So you could look to make sure you get the tax relief, maximise the tax relief on the expenditure so that you save tax, because that would help your cash flow. And that's all legitimate stuff. There's a set of rules to follow there. Regarding your capital gains for your home, as long as it's a kind of dual use, so that you are going to be using private purposes as well, then it's not exclusively business use, so you don't have to worry about capital gains. So it still needs to be part of your home. It needs to look like part of your home as before. So those things can help you.
Thank you.
Neil, just from a business rates point of view, if you do that to your garage, you may find yourself liable for business rates, but you shouldn't need to pay, because you'll get small business rates relief and 100% relief if you were rated. So just to flag that one up.
Thanks as well, Kevin.
Yeah.
Stephen, you had a question.
It wasn't a question, it was a bit of a follow on, and to pick up with what Kevin was saying. There is a new grant. The district council has put aside 300k for COVID recovery fund, and yesterday afternoon we kind of approved in principle that, and that'll be coming out very, very soon, looking at the finer detail, but we're hoping to have them available from probably about the 30th of October, the applications, with a view to decisions in December. Obviously an excellent reason to be members of the Business Association, because they will be the first to hear about it, no doubt. But that is going to have to be very targeted, but it might, and I can't promise this, Neil, but it might well apply to businesses like yours, which need to do some adaptations in order to thrive during COVID. In relation to comments about the money pot, it is going to be getting more difficult. The public sector monies, particularly at district, we are going to have to focus on supporting businesses that are retaining and growing jobs. So that's a very, very positive news. Completely echo what other people are saying. Shop local. If you've got shops that you're going to miss, then please use them. It's absolutely key. And I think a lot of us, because we've not been out drinking and eating quite as much, probably have a little bit more in the bank account than we used to, and can afford to spend that little bit extra rather than hunting around on the internet for bargains. And that's about it for the moment. But keep in touch with your business associations, because they are brilliant at conveying news about the grants and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant, thanks, Stephen. Any further questions? I'm gonna wrap things up, because we're gonna run out of time. Even though I do have more, but I think that would mean we'll run over. So I'm going to pause there. I can't thank you guys enough, speakers, Paula, Kevin, Gary, for putting that together, because the information you have in your brains is so powerful and useful, and it's great to have this, what's the word I'm looking for? Forum, that's the word, forum, to be able for you to do it. All I can say is, please guys, share the fact that what these guys know, and invite your business friends that aren't members along to the next meeting. That would be great to see some more people coming along and finding out the benefits of the HHBA, like meetings like this, and that would be great. So brilliant, thanks guys.